Hello, this is Alan Matthews. Do you get a bit nervous when you're just about to give a talk or a presentation? Of course you do. Everybody does. So that's why it's important that you actually memorize the first few sentences you want to say when you stand up to speak. Now, I certainly wouldn't suggest that you try to memorize a whole speech, but those first few sentences when you stand up are absolutely critical. That's the time when you have the greatest impact on your audience. It's the time when you want to grab their attention. And it's certainly not the time when you want to look most nervous and anxious. So memorize the first few sentences you want to say when you stand up, and don't change your mind at the last minute. I'll tell you why this is important. Because when you get nervous, you probably know this yourself, your brain starts to shut down and you can't think straight. You can't remember exactly what you were planning to do. You get a bit jittery, We've all been through that. I was watching a football match the other night between Germany and Italy, and it went to penalties. And half the players missed their penalties. And the pundits in the studio were saying, well, of course it's because they're all so nervous. It's such a big event. Normally they would be able to score from penalties, but it's the pressure, it's the nerves, it gets to them. And you can't practice for that, you can't rehearse for it. And I thought, that's not actually true. Because I play the guitar in public, I have done for a long time, but I still get very nervous when I'm about to play. And I know that the one thing that gets me through that is practice. I have to practice playing a certain piece of music, so that when I am nervous and my brain starts to shut down, the muscle memory I've built up from doing all that practice carries me through it. I can play that piece of music without having to even think about it. And I think that's the same for penalties. Surely if you practice the penalties over and over and over and over, you get that muscle memory that I'm talking about, so that when you are under pressure and your brain starts to get fuddled and you feel anxious and nervous, your body will still carry out the same functions in the same way that I can still play a piece of music even when I'm nervous, because my fingers have just practiced it so many times. And I think that's not just true of football, I think it's true of presentations as well. If you practice your opening sufficiently, so you've got the first few sentences absolutely nailed down, you don't have to think about them. When you stand up and your brain's going, I'm giving a presentation, I'm a bit nervous now, you've practiced that opening so many times, you can just run through it while your brain's still sorting itself out, and you can say your opening, and by the time you've got through the opening sentences, of course, you've started to calm down. Because you know that even if you're nervous when you go on, after the first couple of minutes, you start to settle down a bit. Partly because you're now focusing on the presentation rather than focusing on the nerves. So practice those first few sentences, work out what your opening is going to be, and then don't change it, so that when you're feeling nervous, you'll stand up, you'll deliver the sentences the way you've practiced them over and over again, and once you've got through that initial period, then you're in the flow, the nerves will start to dissipate, and you'll be able to concentrate on the rest of your performance.